So you end up at this point is a very critical spotlight.
No, we live in UK. What are you representing?
Okay. Otherwise, I would invite you to our exhibition, but we'll be there for us. So,
I mean, for us, Fusion Cities, we're a national council. It's just not, I mean, we have two.
No, actually, I'm not sure if we're, because I think we have the exhibition so maybe might be good to do.
Yes, hello. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Hello. Not yet.
So we can do this whole conference in the Netherlands.
Sorry for
It's not a complicated language.
Can you start?
Do they like this? Yeah.
Send it to me.
Veel input voor revisiesmaking van
Ja, hij is ook kandidaat voor de conversatie. Dus op die manier
Is dit?
This information you can get online?
This will be made out.
You do. Me? And then you just say thank you from the whole work of it.
Okay, and then I need to start to work.
They don't know what we can do. So, definitely, Tibet was always yeah, we have a lot of people from Tibet.
zijn deze regels later.
Yeah, please don't give me some movie yeah. But then good is when somebody or you will be there to explain what is going on. Because, and then one thing more. In September we are inside the we want to use 90-minute program of genocide from the past, silent genocide, open the world to mind. Then you talk about real aggression, that is directly the whole world seems this is totally going wrong. Make the world aware. And we have a yeah, afterwards when we finish that, September, then we will have a today program inside the community. Where the world is very prompt talking about genocide. I agree. It's good. But actually, I'm missing a lot of people. They don't dare to say, hey, what is happening? The world accepted that. He knows what else is happening. It's a trade. They trade into a business. We have the business. The world close your eyes and close the trade partners, but that they can try their most No, we are mainly have some conversation from the yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think my staff was very clear when you were coming here. And I think we can do a lot of things together. We're going to be in Geneva. December we have
Can I ask you all to come on seat, please?
We're going to make coffee.
and we're all very pleased that we're here. So on behalf of Global Human Rights Defense, I would like to welcome you all to the panel discussion on the persecution of religious minorities. I'm going to say just a couple of words. I'm not going to bore anyone today. Just a couple of words about the organization who's hosting this. So GHRD, we're an ECOSOC accredited organization. Our main offices are located in The Hague in the Netherlands. Yeah, thank you, Matthew. Why are we saying that? Because it's very important for the lobbying, for lobbying connections with the EU, for the UN. It makes our lives easier having this status, so we're really pleased and lucky to have such. Our work is based on 4 pillars: the empowerment, education, lobbying, advocacy, and monitoring and investigation. We have a very young team, very international. Some of us are based in The Hague, but we also have staff in India and Brazil, so we're very much spread around the globe, which is why we're called Global Human Rights Defense. Our chairman is here today, Mr. Sanada Cital. He's in the first row, so you can talk to him later as well. I will give a special welcome to our panelists, but they're going to be introduced by our moderator. Our moderator is Mark Wortman. He's a board member of Global Human Rights Defense, and I think that leaves me to say, enjoy the panel discussion. Also, a warm welcome to the people live streamed. We have a live stream on our social media and on our website, so welcome to the online audience. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lina. There's no seats for me because we have 4 panelists, so I'll keep standing. But before we start, I would like to ask Mr. Jeroen Leers, member of the European Parliament, to say a few words to us. He's member of, it's already on the screen, member of the Christian Democratic Party of the Netherlands, and since 2014 a member of the European Parliament. Mr. Leers, can I ask you as well to speak standing?
Yes, of course. Thank you. Thank you very much, Monica, and thank you for inviting me today to speak to you. And for me, it's very convenient, of course, because the Parliament is only 15 minutes walk that way. And I think it's extremely good that you are organizing this meeting here today, because I spoke to you yesterday, to some of the extremely young and talented people of your organization. And it's always good. It's always great for us, as I can speak of all members of the Parliament, I think, to be in touch with people who know much more about certain topics than you do, and who can also help you in the future to increase the European effect of the European policy level in these situations that you are discussing. Because one thing I think that is very clear, COVID and the pandemic have only increased this, is that it is not necessarily a positive message we have in 2022 when we talk about freedom of religion, freedom of belief, and the way these rights are protected across the world. And these rights are the foundation of what the European Union is all about. It is the founding value of our European cooperation, and we have a responsibility as a European Union to make sure that, first of all, freedom of religion and belief, and non-discrimination, and equal treatment, fundamental rights are protected within the European Union, but we also have a duty and a responsibility to make sure that beyond the European Union, these rights are protected as well. And there's, of course, many ways that also the European Parliament, because this is the institution that I am a member of, can contribute to this. You've all seen, we've just spoken to Koen from the World Uyghur Congress, is it? About the work we've done on the persecution and the discrimination against Uyghurs in China. Earlier this month, we adopted a resolution specifically on this topic. Adopting resolutions is not enough. We've also adopted, I think Pakistan is also on the panel today. I remember many resolutions we had on the case of Asia Bibi, for instance, on other individual cases. I think it's very important for the European Parliament to raise awareness of specific fundamental rights infringements in the country. But it's not enough, because the European Union is a huge global player when it comes to economy and trade, and we should use that power that we have in a much better way to also create positive change when it comes to fundamental rights, when it comes to freedom of belief and religion. I mean, we worked on one of the questions was actually the call on the Commission, for instance, when it came to the Uyghur, was very clearly, have a ban on imports that are in what way whatsoever related to this this oppression of the Uyghur community in China. And I think if we are a European Union founded on values like human dignity, like democracy, like rule of law, like non-discrimination, then this needs to also be an implicit part of our strategy towards third countries, in our trade relations, in our development aid, in our any partnerships we create with countries around the world. This needs to be the case. Now, I was speaking to the chairman yesterday and also earlier today, and one of the things we discussed is how can we translate the excellent work that your organization does around the world, and how can we make more tangible consequences, more tangible output from all the work that you do. And I think for me, I'm speaking here, I spoke to you yesterday, so this was for me the end of my participation with you today. But I see this also as a starting point, because I really believe there are a lot of synergies that we could explore for the work in the European Parliament, the work that you do as an organization, to bring your input much more concretely also to the European level, to help us increase the role of the European Union in all these topics that you're going to discuss today, and to make sure that we join forces together. There's a lot of organizations that we work with in the European Parliament. We discussed a couple of them already, but the specific research, the specific studies that you do, the specific information that you can provide would be very welcome also at the level of the European institutions. And this is my open invitation to you. Let's work together. There's a great team of young professional people here that we would like to work with. So let's follow up on this and see in the next weeks and months how we can, in a structural way, because this is the most important thing, bring our cooperation to the next level. I'm very sorry that I cannot stay here for the remainder of the panel, but next week is the plenary session in Strasbourg, and unfortunately this means that this week is pretty chaotic, and I have to go back to the Parliament for some preparatory meetings for next week's plenary. But I really wish you a very fruitful discussion. I look forward to discuss the results with you afterwards, and my open invitation to you is stay in touch with us, and let's work together on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lennarts. I think we listened very carefully, and we will come back to you following up from this meeting. So good luck with the work.
And once again, apologies that I cannot stay with you. Thank you.
We want you to make your steps for the day.
Yes, I need some. Thank you so much.
Okay, so then I invite the panelists to come to the floor. Mr. Stoop, your name plates are already there. Yeah, Mr. Gill, Mrs. Greenwood, and Mr. Ted. We have a variety of topics today to work on and to discuss. And I think, first of all, we need to learn from you who you are and what you're doing and which organization you represent. And I should have started with the lady, but we have the order of the flyer, and that's also on the screen.
Equal society.
So, Mr. Stock, can I ask you to kick off and introduce yourself and your organization?
Good afternoon, and first of all, thanks so much for Religious Minorities for inviting me, inviting the World Youth Congress to speak on this important panel. My name is Koen Stoop. I'm the EU Policy Coordinator for the World Youth Congress. The World Youth Congress is an international umbrella organization representing the collective interests of the Uyghur people worldwide, both Uyghurs in China, but also Uyghurs in the diaspora. As an umbrella organization, we are connected to more than 40 local Uyghur communities in over 18 countries worldwide. My job here in Brussels as EU representative is obviously to engage with the institutions of the European Union. So I engage closely with the members of the European Parliament, but also with the European Commission, with the European External Action Services, and based in Belgium from time to time also with the Belgian government and the Belgian Parliament. Broadly saying to advocate for a change to a more human rights-centered approach between the EU and its member states and China. So that is in short our work, and I'm looking forward to discussions here.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me to this dinner. I'm very much honored and very happy to be with these many talented people, Mr. Lennon said, here today. International Campaign for Tibet, that's the organization I'm working for. I am based in Amsterdam. We have offices also here in Brussels, then in Berlin, and in Washington, D.C. We have also some people working in India and doing research. So we are not really global, but we are represented in many different countries. Maybe it's also important to say what we do. We do advocacy work. Basically, we are active at UN level. We attend sessions there regularly. We also lobby the respective governments, Germany, Netherlands, or any other country, or France. At the moment, my colleague Vincent is in Eastern Europe, in the Czech Republic, and tries to connect with the foreign ministry there and with other people who are showing some interest in the Tibet matter. We are working also on legislation, and in the past we were quite successful also to introduce some meaningful, not we introduced, but we help others to introduce and support the process in the US Congress. So now there are a series of good legislation in the US Congress, and we were part of this team who helped advance these issues. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Rubina Greenwood, can you introduce yourself? And I think you're working for two organizations.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for inviting me for Global Human Rights Defense. I am chairwoman of World Sindhi Congress and founder of International Sindhi Women Organization and also founder of Sindhi Baloch Forum. I'm going to talk about a little bit. World Sindhi Congress is about 32 years old organization based in the UK, US, and Canada, and Dubai. And a women's organization again is based in the UK and US. So what we do, World Sindhi Congress is an advocacy group. We base our constitution and our main agenda is promoting right of self-determination for Sindhi people. So we raise the human rights situation of Sindh and Sindhis on international platforms such as United Nations, European Parliament, and we lobby a lot of countries similar. But main is actually more raising awareness about Sindh situation on the international platform. What I am doing here today is I'm going to talk about minorities, religious minorities in Sindh, because we think Sindhi national cause is not without minorities cause. Minority cause is our key and prime human rights issue in Sindh. And so I'm really privileged to be invited because I'm going to take 1 minute more on introduction.
Sure.
I'm going to talk about, we say lesser known minorities, because that not often people know internationally that actually Sindh is the region where we have indigenous Hindu minorities, and not many people know about for the Pakistan. We have indigenous peoples, and I'm going to focus today about Sindhi Hindus and their human rights situation.
Thank you. And Mr. Jill, Watson Jill.
Thank you very much, GHRD, especially Mr. Situ, for inviting me, and give me opportunity to raise my voice for my helpless people in Pakistan. My name is Watson Gill, and belong to Overseas Pakistani Christian Alliance. But I feel proud to be the part of Pakistani Dutch Christian community, because we friends from Holland and also from different countries. We work together, we raise our voice in Geneva and also Brussels for European Parliament. And as you know, what is happening in Pakistan with the minorities. And of course, I belong to Christian community, so I raise our voice for Christian community, what is happening with girls, kidnapped, raped every day. And we are also working on, now we are working on GST plus status especially, and we will talk with Mr. Yaron. He just went, and I was thinking that maybe we can talk with him, but he left. So in future, we will make this campaign more strong. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, maybe the first question for all of you is, what can the EU do, the European Union, European countries do to help your cause and your organization? Maybe starting with you, then this is so.
Of course, I think over the past years, of course, the Uyghur cause it's been a form of, it's been a form of repression that's been ongoing for a couple of decades, but of course, it hasn't really reached the highlights over the past 4 years in context of the concentration camps making the news. So since 2017, I would say the European Union has, consistently expressed its concern over the human rights situation in East Turkestan, as Uyghurs call their home country. However, I think given this context where we find ourselves in now, where millions of Uyghurs are locked up and Uyghurs are subject to forced labor to produce the products that end up on our markets, also here in the EU, I think words do not help anymore. Concrete action is needed. There are several things that the EU can do indeed, and I think Mr. Linares already highlighted, for instance, that the EU in its trade relationships, for instance, with China, should be very consistent and should put human rights as the first key point on the agenda, because the EU does have significant economic leverage over China. Of course, also the other way around, we have to be realistic, but I think the EU as a very first point should consistently put human rights as its first agenda point when discussing trade with China. There are several other concrete examples that I'm happy to go into more detail, but I think for now it suffices to say that also in this sense, an import ban mechanism, due diligence legislation, but also targeted sanctions against officials that are complicit in these human rights violations. And there are various other things that the EU can do, but I think I've sketched the general context or the general steps that the EU can take in response to the Uyghur crisis.
One of the others, maybe Ms. Green, yeah? What do you think that the EU can do for you?
Yeah, I think before I talk about what EU can do, a little bit want to emphasize the issue actually, because it sets the scene. The many people probably know what Sindh is. Sindh is the southeastern province of Pakistan, and it's the home of about 7% population is Hindu-Sindhis. And I'm really going to concern about two main issues of human rights point of view on the Sindhi Hindus. Just to give you a little historical, that when in 1947, when Pakistan was formed, we had 27% population, and all those 7 decades, today we have only 7% Hindus. So you could see the systematic coercive and forced migration has happened in the country, and it shows that what's happening in the country. Not only that, there are two main concerns. And of course, I'm not going to talk about the general virus and then kidnapping of Hindus and these and all those things. But the two main problems is one is forced conversion of underage girls, of Sindhi Hindus, which basically many of probably know because we have done a 3 times universal periodic review articles in Geneva. More than 20 girls every month are kidnapped, generally 99% under 18, forced into Islam, forced into marriages. Not a single culprit has been caught, or not a single girl has gone back to their families. police, the parliamentary, and the government all are linked, and it's institutionalized, it's politicized. And the second issue which I would like to talk about it is the bonded labor, which is not many people know. 1.7 million in Pakistan still are under the bonded labor, and the majority of them are Hindus. And that's a critical issue. Both issues are pure humanitarian issues. One is a children's right. It's not a Pakistan's internal issue. It is an international issue, and European countries need to support our UPR submissions. And same on the anti-slavery. Both are international human rights issues. They are not Pakistan's internal countries issues. We need help from you guys to lobby the all European members to support our universal free radical article review and challenge the Pakistan to comply with the treaties which are their signatory and implement and really bring a change. We not want lip service. 3 times we have submitted, we had a lip service from Pakistan in response, but this time in November, I need the support from GHRD to lobby all individual countries to support the UPR submission and challenge Pakistan on that. This is one really key. Secondly, of course, GSP Plus, many people have talked about it. We need to have not only improve the human rights situation in Sindh and Balochistan and minority, no. We want to ask Pakistan to demonstrate what improvement and benefits has been brought into the change of these situations in human rights, not just a clause. So we need to reword those GSP process clauses into the documentation that the Pakistan needs to demonstrate and show the evidence how the improvements have been made on human rights.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
You want to say something about it?
Yes,
Yeah,
I also want to add something about the GSP Plus, because we are, from 10 years, we are appealing to European Union. Many times we presented petitions to do something for the European Union can play a strong role. And but I don't see any change because they ignore this, especially the European Union. Even European Union played a strong role about ASEAN and other cases. But GSP Plus status, I think, is a key fact when you ask Pakistan to stop or even equal rights to the minorities, then exchange with the rights, the GSP Plus status. But I don't know why the European Union is not stopping this. And now we are against that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, this is maybe one thing that triggers me in what you said. In 3 days' time in the Netherlands, we will celebrate that 159 years ago, the ancient slavery was abolished in 1863. But we always say, yeah, we have to be aware that there is still modern slavery. But we only say that, we don't do enough. I think that could be something on our agenda as well, to say, okay, we can celebrate that on the one hand, but there's so many places in the world where there is still modern slavery, and it has a different style than 100 years ago. But it's still very wrong. Sorry.
In Sindh, in Pakistan, it's not a modern way of slavery. It is a traditional way of slavery because the families through the generation are debted to the feudals and landlords. So they end up working through their children and generations for the feudals. The feudals are parliamentary, generally. That's what happens. And they are supported by establishment. Just one point I wanted on GSP. I recently heard that GSP mission from European External Committee has been visiting Pakistan briefly. Really, again, we should have known, the lobbies should have been known, that we could have influenced who they should meet, where they should go. They will end up in Islamabad and will come back from Islamabad, unfortunately. I think there's something in that space very quickly needs to be done on GSP Plus, because as the mission coming back from Pakistan, we need to focus on it. And I think we just need help from the people.
Yeah, so you need also intelligence to know
Thank you.
things in advance and not afterwards. Yeah. I think you wanted to say something as well, yeah?
Yes, I think we have heard these examples of gross violations of human rights in Pakistan, and it's horrible to hear the facts and the situation there. you look at the situation in China, and I think the Uyghur people as Tibetans are very much sort of looking at this situation in China, it has changed a lot in the past months and weeks. There is a new awareness about the role China is playing in the world. A few years ago, we came to Brussels or went to other European capitals and talked about the situation in Tibet and asked for help. But now I would say the time has come where we Tibetans, maybe also the Uyghur people, could offer the EU help to understand how to resist this huge threat that China is for open societies. And as we speak now, in Tibet, there is a systematic repression of freedom of people. You see it in the monasteries, you see it in the schools, you see it in the families, you see it in the economy, in the economic life, everywhere. People are under a huge pressure. Then there is, for example, a monastery, you see, which was actually quite obedient and always was not protested, you see, against the Chinese rule, tried to be cooperative. And even this monastery, a complex of nearly 10,000 people living in a mountain area, was closed, yeah, parts of it. So the question is, you see, how does it come that even such a monastery, such a group of people are targeted now? In the East, the question is quite easy. These group of people, they represent an alternative to the way of life that China is practicing at the moment. The Tibetans are fighting for a future which is democratic, which is free, where human rights are respected. And what we see in China is just the opposite. And I think it's wrong for Europeans to believe that this is something that only will affect the Tibetans or the Uyghur people. Sooner or later, this question will come also on Europe. Because the Western societies, the freedoms that we enjoy here puts a huge question mark on the situation in China itself. So they won't tolerate, this will be targeted. And we see already these things happening in Europe. So the question is, are the Uyghur people or the Tibetan people, are you able to learn something from us? Maybe it's our turn to show you something, you see, how you fight this long game, you see. What we did in the past, the Tibetan experience, is to build up institutions, you see, to take care of one one's nationality, identity, culture, to also keep away the Chinese influence from our institutions in order to keep our inner groups intact. And now we are fighting this fight for more than 60, 70 years. We are still here. Yeah, we are still here. And in fact, I feel very optimistic also for the future that it will be possible for us to if you look at the religious situation or topic which has been raised very sort of often, very sort of intensively, is the succession of the Dalai Lama. What about the reincarnation, next reincarnation of the Dalai Lama? And how would the Chinese try to take control of this lineage of Tibetan spiritual leader? And this would have a huge impact on Central Asia there. And just to give you an example how to play a long game, I think, of course, the institution of the Dalai Lama is important. We have to secure a succession which is not been filled by the Chinese authorities and so on. And I frankly also don't believe that the Chinese will be able to force a fake Dalai Lama on the Tibetans. But meanwhile, the Tibetans in exile, but also in Tibet, underwent a process. There's a legacy that we have from this Dalai Lama, which is about open society, democracy, respect for human rights. And there are many more small Dalai Lamas to speak, and who are able to carry on with this legacy. And I think that's really also
Thank you very much. I think that's a very important comment that we need to learn from you, that we have been probably too naive in Europe in trading with China and also with Russia, by the way, thinking that would improve the situation, which it doesn't. So we need new strategies for the future. I wonder if there are questions from the room. You're very quiet, but maybe someone wants to ask a question or make a comment. If not, I still have one for the panel. The countries like Pakistan and China sign all the international treaties with nice wording about human rights for minorities, for everybody, but they don't keep them. And then they say, at least China does that, and Russia does that as well. Yeah, we have other values. These are Western values. But if I hear you speak, I don't think you consider that Western values, do you? No.
They are signatories. All of five of them. Five of the treaties, they are signatories, Pakistan signatories, but there's no implementation. There's no check. And UPR, Universal Periodic Review, is the mechanism in the UN to check that they are compliance with it. But every time the Pakistan delegation come in UN with a minority group of 15 people, unfortunately, or fortunately, it's it's a very social engineering country in a sense to convince those minority who come and turn up in UN, everything is going in a perfect picture. But that's not the reality, of course. They don't bring the actual people into the scene. So every three times I've been in that process, they have gone away and get away with it. Because China supports Pakistan a lot, and because of through China and Latin American countries, their lobby becomes like, out of 120 countries in UN, 90 countries become in favor of Pakistan. Through the China lobby, through the OIC, which is Organization for Islamic Countries, and through Latin American trade alliances, and then now European as well. So they become a majority. We never did that from Pakistan. And that's one thing we want to break through that. Of course, the China lobby, which of course I'm going to talk about it, but of course European lobby will keep it quiet because of GSP and all trade interactions, and of course then Latin America, Pakistan has got a trade with on weapons with Argentina and Chile and so on. These are the reasons they become majority. So never Pakistan get challenged in United Nations. That's one.
Maybe if I can very briefly add to that, sorry. I think this also points to your previous question, why the EU should be interested and why the EU should act. Because, I think it's also great that we have this diverse panel, that we talk about, of course, very specific human rights violations, but I think that with their own characteristics, but I think at the core, and I think their end results, they are very much interlinked. Indeed, you talked about the China lobby, and I think the UN is the perfect kind of context where we see that countries that are able and without any condemnation are able to carry out such human rights violations are supporting each other, are legitimizing each other's human rights violations. Take the example of China. Just the last Human Rights Council, the Netherlands led a statement on behalf of 47 countries condemning China's human rights practices, human rights abuses. In response, China gathered a group of, I believe, over 50 other countries, authoritarian states with their own very serious human rights violations, leading a counter-statement basically justifying what China is doing to Tibetans, to Uyghurs, to Hong Kongers, etc. And this just goes further than just statements, because China is very actively at the United Nations trying to change our understanding of human rights, as universal, as something that each human being possesses that cannot be taken away from a human being. But instead, China is proposing these resolutions that say that human rights are an internal matter and each state can have different understandings of human rights. So basically, the whole concept upon which the United Nations is built since the Second World War, China is trying to actively change this with the support of, for instance, Pakistan and other countries that are conducting such human rights violations. So it's also in our interest, not only of the European Union, but I think also of ourselves as individual and concerned citizens to speak out. Because if China or these other countries succeed in changing our understanding of human rights, this might, in the long run, also impact our own human rights and our own personal freedoms and democracy in countries worldwide. So I think it's a thing that should not only be of concern to the European Union or to heads of government, but I think to concern citizens worldwide if we value our human rights and our own personal freedoms that we have. Because we can, and I think that's, like all these cases show them, that we cannot take those for granted. Yeah, that's just what I would like to add there.
Okay, gentleman here has a question.
Thank you. My name is Ejaz Matthew, and I'm from Holland. Without repeating what our experts have already said, I would like to take it to the next level. Pakistan is going to go into new elections in a year's time, and it is a high time that European Union, GHRD, and all of us who are advocating for the rights of minorities in Pakistan should demand European Union to engage with Pakistan that a law which is of federal imposition becomes a federal legislation to stop underage marriage, rape, abduction and child marriage of minorities girls. Pakistan is in a coalition government, and these governments are in the best position to help this legislation come into parliament and pass before the next elections even. And we are not here to stop Pakistan from ensuring the GSP plus status, but we want the European Union to use this good thing to influence Pakistan and engage with it into talks that the action should speak louder than their words. And it is a high time that Pakistan makes a federal law to stop the abduction of minorities girls, because we believe that child marriage is child rape. Thank you.
Yeah, clear message, I think, and maybe to us. Thank you. I don't know if you want to add something, yeah?
May I add to your question, you see, about human rights and these Western values? No, they are not Western values, they are global values. There are legal obligations, and so I think it's the duty of the European government and the leaders to hold the Pakistanis or the Chinese accountable.
Okay. Oh, that's here.
Yeah.
It always happens one time, so reminds everybody to keep it silent. Yeah.
So I think what I wanted to say is, I think it's wrong to think of these values as not some global values. And there is a tendency in the public opinion in Europe to have some sort of cultural relativism, you see, and to say, oh, these are maybe more sort of Western values, or these are more Eastern values. No, there are some legal obligations that the countries and the leaders have to fulfill. And I think it's also to be, I think we should be naive. These discourses are brought into our societies by progressive parties. And this is done with lots of sophistication through social media, through some influencer, journalists, maybe, whatever. And I think every instance of these occurrences of such opinions should be fought back.
Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Imran Gill, and I'm also from Netherlands. I'm very pleased with all the comments and talks we just heard from our friends here. And there was one question that what EU can do. But I was happy that Mr. Wangpo said that why EU can do. So because EU can only do when in that the thing is in their own interest. Because we are talking about human rights, but they are talking about the business. To be very honest, and if that hurts, but EU is a business parliament. They are doing their business. They are not care about the human rights. All the people who are sitting there, they are the businessmen. And why they can destroy their own business to talk with Pakistan? Because they have lots of benefits in Pakistan through their businesses. We're talking about that we need legislations in Pakistan. How it will be happen? When there are no members of minorities in the parliament. Our sister Rubina just said that when the delegation came from Pakistan, the minorities, they are just, well, they are called minority, our leaders, but they are not. They are only the puppets. And they are arranged by the government of Pakistan. They just came here to just say that, oh, everything is fine, everything is all right. But if EU wants to go to Pakistan, they have to go to the roots, to grassroots level, not in the Islamabad. Islamabad is all, everything is okay. All is well in Islamabad. But the actual situation is in the rural parts of the Pakistan. And if EU can do, then we ask for our own parliament members, not chosen by the government of Pakistan. And they can have a right to speak, freedom of speech. We can't talk about our issues in Pakistan. If we can talk about our issues in Pakistan, everyone knows that that person will be abducted and then nobody knows where he is. Disappeared, totally disappeared. So if EU can do something, first, give all the minorities, not just the Christians, there are Hindus, there are Sikhs, Ahmadis also there. We need freedom of speech there. So we can raise our voice. And if we can raise our voice here, many times we came here in the EU, many times we demonstrate in front of the European Parliament. We give many petitions to the EU. What happened? They only think about their own personal interests. So we need to talk to the EU. Please stop this. Think, if you are talking about human rights, then practice the human rights. It's not like only we can say that, oh, in the EU, in the Europe, in the freedom of human rights, everything is okay. Then why not they can, put pressure on Pakistan to do that? They're only just by words. We need practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Someone wants
Yeah, I just
talk
want to
about
tell
it.
that Mr. Ran has said that this is very important things. 5.6, if I'm not wrong, $5.6 billion has benefit for Pakistan. If just 1 year EU stop that status, I think, because Pakistan needs $1 billion for IMF and they're begging for $1 billion. And here, $5.6 billion, if they stop by the EU, I think they will, in 2 years, we can see changes with the human rights, especially the minorities will get. So that is, yeah, it's bitter, but we have to ask the EU. They cannot throw over petitions in the garbage. They have to react on that. So I agree with Mr. Imran, and I will add something as Mr. Jas said about our daughters. Yeah? I have 3 daughters, one is sitting here, and I thank to the God that my daughters are safe. But in Pakistan, more than 100,000 fathers like me, they lose their daughters, and even they want to just see, and they will not see them again. So this is the reality, and EU have to understand that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I just give a little bit different sort of sad seeing of Pakistan? So Pakistan is one of the most critical countries due to its geopolitical point of view, but not only that, one thing I think we're forgetting in this modern political scene, that they are nuclear armed state, and EU need to remind them, we campaigner need to remind you that they are not. And the nuclear arm in Pakistan does not sit with a democratic parliamentary or anything. It sits with the military. Military is in the top. Military's vision of Pakistan is 99% Puritan Islamic state. And that's one thing is that which affecting you, which is affecting me, affecting everybody. And who is supporting military? Military's economic alliances with China on CPEC, which is China Economic Corridor. This brings the whole completely new twist to suppress the progressive forces, progressive voices within the state. I think the key thing is that, which we talked about the parliament and through the election, no matter how many true democratic states you were going to bring it, till the military is not going to break through. Military is the ultimate power in Pakistan, and these needs to be tackled. This giant dragon needs to be managed by internationally, otherwise no one secure in the Pakistani state. All the weapons, all the resources are being used on Baloch, Sindhis and minorities in Pakistan.
Yeah, question there.
I would like to ask Mr. Stoll a question. We talked a lot about what the European Parliament and what the European Union can do, but I have a question what the European citizens, especially what the European youth could do, because we're a very young team at Global Human Rights Defence, and I think we all grew up in a very, not all, but some of us grew up quite privileged. I myself am from Germany, we are based in the Netherlands, so we are in a privileged position. So what can not the European Parliament, not the institutions, but what can the youth in Europe do to raise awareness, etc.?
I think that's a key question, because I think also during these kind of events, the focus is often on the institutions, what do the institutions need to do, and I think very practically looking at it, the numbers that you citizens have a voice, if you citizens can speak with one voice, the impact is often underestimated. I think citizens have a huge influence to play. I would highlight different levels. The first one is actually quite simple. Everybody has a voice. Everybody can raise their voice through various means. Almost each of us, especially young people, have social media these days. It's easy to share posts, to share instances of human rights violations that concern you or that you're concerned about. Inform your friends, inform your family members, spread awareness. That's a very easy first step to do. Whether you're privileged or not, you have the opportunity to write your members of parliament, write your local representatives, asking them to do something. So I would say every individual has a possibility to raise their voice, to do something to spread awareness, or to call upon, hold your government also accountable for what they're doing or for what they're not doing. Secondly, and I think, especially if we talk about Uyghurs and Uyghur forced labor, we're not only citizens, we're also consumers. And I think one of the main reasons why companies are getting away with cheap labor wherever it happens, forced labor wherever it happens, child labor, is because we buy their products. If we as consumers stop buying products from those companies that do not take action and do not change their supply chains or do not operate sustainable, if we stop purchasing from them, they will feel it and they will be forced to change their practices. So as consumers, we have a huge power, but of course, as an individual itself, it's difficult to change companies' behavior. So that's why it's also necessary that we do it together. You find people that are like-minded, and through also NGO organizations or through you have student associations. There are a lot of different places where like-minded people are coming together. People that have the will and the wish to change the world and these human rights violations. So there are so many things that that citizens can do, and I think as citizens you have a voice. Of course, we especially like in Europe and the Western world, we have democratic elections where you have a vote. You have a vote as an adult, but also as consumers. In the end, I think citizens have the power to hold their governments accountable, to hold companies accountable if they don't respect human rights. Because as long as we keep giving the message to companies, to governments that what they're doing is okay, then they will continue doing so. So in the end, those who do not take action, they need to be held accountable. And I
very true. I think that most are more questions. Most changes in society come from bottom up because people are mobilized, and that's something we can do. And certainly young people are good at mobilizing. Matthew.
Thank you. Okay, yes, you can hear me well. First of all, thank you very much for coming, and it's been very interesting listening to what you all have to say. And my question is related to what Dr. Greenwood has brought up, related to this particular facet of interacting with foreign states as the EU, which is the military aspect to nation statehood. And so what I would like to ask you is understanding that war is now on Europe's front doorstep. We all know about this, it's happening right now, and so what I'm curious to know about your opinion is how this might affect Europe's maybe incentive to be maybe a bit more, not forceful is maybe not the right word, but to put their foot down, be a little bit more severe about their position, their normative position related to Pakistan and Tibet, because these are countries that have, as you said, they have a nuclear arsenal, they're powerful countries militarily speaking, but now that Europe is being tested, do you think Europe might change in the coming future to be more forceful in helping those minorities or these regions that need their help? Thank you.
First of all, Tibetan don't consider us as minorities. We won't talk about minorities. We say we are people, we are a nation, we are a group of people. So I think the terms that we use should be applied very carefully. So one of our first asks is also for the European government and other governments not to use this term minority. And we were happy to see when Charles Michel made a statement recently after this EU-China summit that he really put that ourselves is the language there. It says the people of Tibet. Yeah. So I think that's just a second. Now, first of all, just also, I think this military aspect is very important. And in fact, we could also just expand it and talk about security. You see. And if you look at the situation in China, the whole COVID thing showed us how interdependent the whole system became. And it showed us also how that Europe and many other countries are in a situation where they can be blackmailed very easily. So I think this COVID pandemic was an eye-opener for many governments. And for the first time, since I was now working on this issue, I saw sort of really this anxiety in the people's eyes. What is going to happen in the future if we are not able to disconnect and disentangle this long supply chain? And I think this is a good situation. I think it's basically good for environmental reasons, for fair trade reasons. It's good also for human rights interests, because all this trade interests, as you said, harm the discussion, the advancement of human rights. So I think the general trend is a good thing. See, I think at the moment there is more awareness about this situation. And then, on a more general note, I would say it is wrong for your community or for our community or for your community to wait, you see, till Europe does it or the US. In the end, they will only look after their interests. They have to see. So it's up to us, you see, to become strong, to do something. It would be a wrong attitude and a wrong signal to say, because of some global changes, our situation will automatically become better. And we have this experience with Tibet. We, since many years, you see, we are fighting this, yeah. And we are doing it quite successfully, you see. And of course, we continue to appeal to the European governments. We continue to remind them of their legal obligations. And there are many things that can be done. As you said, you see, all the supply to consumer power, it's there. working on the issues here, and if then the situation arises in the poverty, then we should be ready to grasp it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. A very important point mentioned. In our case as well, Sindhis are the nation, and there are 50 million people, so we are nation, one of Pakistan's nations. But Hindus and Christians and Ahmadis are our religious minorities. And as I said when we start off the conversation, that our Sindh's national cause is not sufficient without our minorities. So we see as our national issue. So that's one thing I wanted to clarify. Second bit is, I do agree that we need to do our own things to protect ourselves and go for our self-determination rights and so on. But we are stuck in a situation which is very different, slightly different from China. In our case, Pakistan military get funding from an international aid on the military side of it. We get fighter jets, we get all the weapons from Europe, all the trade comes from Europe. So that's the situation. We are empowering day by day Pakistani military amongst the more than reducing their power. Right? I hope that Ukraine thing can bring that into notice, but I don't know. Pakistan has capitalized on geopolitical situation on the protecting and lobbying Europe and America. Well, I'm keeping you away from China, and I'm going to keep you away from India as well. So I need a big old weapon to do this. But last 70 years, never been a war or anything, but that's just something. And at the moment, Pakistan's richest enterprise, which got $20 billion is the military. Military has got the land, military has got a defense housing society, military has got university, military has got oil exploration. One of the largest corporate world is military, and there's many literature about it. I'm not going to go into because it's military incorporation. It's no. We have housing society with a barrier town, defense housing society, where the people live, which is military owned states. They are currently under the barrier town, which scheme I don't know whether any. They are wiping indigenous villages to create the land and housing society for the military people. This is a different game we are here talking about, the different things. So there's a slightly different. Our military has got a lot of empowerment from Europe, unfortunately, and America. All the weapons come from there. China has got its own inside the military. So that's why we feel really that the Europe has to play. Then goes trade. Then goes trade on the arms, first of all. Thank you.
Okay, there are more questions from the audience, so I will.
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for being here and for this very productive discussion. My question is actually quite related to Matthew's. So yesterday there was a protest outside of the the European Parliament, where it was the Tamil people in Sri Lanka protesting against the Sri Lankan authorities for the genocide that's being committed against them, and they were calling the EU to conduct an independent investigation. And we interviewed one of the organizers, and he mentioned, he said that why is the EU doing so much now because of the war against Ukraine, but they're ignoring us. And he went on to actually, I'm not 100% sure of the statistics he used, but he went on to say that this amount of people die every day in Ukraine, and this amount of people die every day in Sri Lanka, and kind of imply that the situation is more severe in Sri Lanka. How do you feel about statements like this? Do you feel it's productive to compare these types of situations?
Could I just quickly? I don't think so. Because I mean, the violence is violence. Is it small or bigger violence? Is violence. Whether it's happening in my doorstep. I mean, I think Europeans are concerned about Ukraine because it's in your doorstep, and that's a natural thing to do. But what we are concerned, I think we should all do, I don't know, was it, Chinabin says, that that same emphasis needs to be given to other issues. But yes, we are seeing it, that how Syrian war was ignored and so on, so on. But that's not the point. Of course, Ukraine is your doorstep, and the European will be upset about it. But but that one thing I want to say, that element, that this situation, political situation, can actually take your eye off from the lot of injustices around the world. So that needs to be balanced out. Thank you.
I will also want to respond. For the comparatively, Sri Lanka and Ukraine is facing war. Russia imposed that war on Ukraine, but in Sri Lankan case, it is not, because the people are fighting with their own government. There is a problem with the political problem in own country. Now the bankrupts, and also they have nothing even for eating and everything. But the Ukraine is facing war, which is imposed by Russia, and many women and children. I also been there. I saw some, not inside the Ukraine, but I saw many people are fleeing from there, and they have nothing even for eating and drinking. So they have now war, but this is not the comparatively, totally different, I think. That's my opinion.
I'd also like to ask as a follow-up. I completely understand and I completely agree with you, so thank you for backing this up. But I have seen also a lot of commentary that this massive reaction towards Ukraine that has been seen to other countries is not only that it's just on our doorstep, but that it's also hints of racism. Do you agree with this?
Could you, in what sense, racism against?
That because Ukrainians are all white and they look like us and that they resemble us, that it's easier to sympathize with them. This is not my opinion, this is just what I've seen.
I think you have a good point, and I think it is something that, you know, I mean, of course it's not my expertise, but I think what I always see, for instance, also in public statements, is where, you know, Ukrainian refugees are, you know, are welcomed in the sense that, okay, they, you know, look more like us as Europeans. They are more automatically welcomed, whereas, you know, refugees from Africa, other countries are portrayed very differently. So I think there's some truth to that, I would say. I think at the same time, what is, I think, very interesting to see through the European Union's response to what's happening in Ukraine is that it shows that the European Union is capable to act as soon as there is a political will to act. The European has tools at its disposal. You know, economic sanctions, political sanctions, loads of things that the EU is capable apparently at doing as long as EU member states are united and as long as there's political will. And I think it also points out one of the deeper discussions with regards to the European Union as a geopolitical actor. It's been a big debate over the past few years if the EU is capable to act, you know, against human rights violations or against wars. And you know, I think there's been a lot of criticism to the EU with regards to its inability to act. And I think it's also to do with, for instance, the fact that on any foreign policy action, it needs unanimity with all European member states. And we see also, even with Ukraine, we see that it poses problems. For instance, when Hungary or other European Union member states are blocking certain actions, and we've seen the same happening to China. But I think at the end of the day, we see, and I think this is also something that we can take for our own causes, that we can hold the EU accountable when they're not doing something, because its response to what's happening in Ukraine shows that as soon as there's political will, and there is a political will now, the EU is capable to act. So the EU never has, you know, it's never justification for the EU to say that it's incapable to act or that it doesn't know how to act, because we've seen that it is possible when it's political will.
I think that's a very nice point. There's a question here, and then here, and then maybe we do a final statement
Thank
after
you very
that.
much.
Yeah.
May God bless you, everybody. My name is Bishop Cooker. I'm a chairman and founder of Gospel Revival Church in Pakistan, and I am a director class in that church. I have a little bit appeal for Malaysian Pakistani Christian refugees. Discrimination by UNHRC Malaysia for Pakistani Christian asylum seekers. I would like to draw your kindness word Pakistani asylum seeker in Malaysia who are suffering since long time 2013 for resettlement in other countries, but they were persecuted in Pakistan and come here to save their lives, but tangled here in Malaysia for unlimited time because nobody knows that how long they will take time to give them safe life to live happily. I am working with them for 7 years and observe that they are helpless and wanted to move such a worst condition in Malaysia. Many of them are very skilled and educated personnel and are wasting their abilities. If country help to use them for development and they can play a better role the country. I personally know many people among them. During this season of my intersection with them, the asylum seeker, especially Pakistani Christian, are facing lot of problems. Being asylum seeker, UNHCR, Malaysia is not search about Pakistani Christians and giving them long dates without any result. As all world now about the persecution of Pakistani Christians and what happening with Christians in Pakistan, like kidnapping, rape, kill, forced conversion, and conversation. Thank you. I have to need for one more, and then I short. All asylum seekers are getting refugee status and resettlement. Other countries, Ahmadi, Muslim, and other Muslims, but Pakistani Christians are still waiting for the result. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I give you this one copy.
There was a statement, not a question. Yeah, thank you. You had a question?
Yeah, I just have one question. Recently, the boycott from the European Union and the US and Canada and Australia against Russia, it's effective, but do you think that it will be a wake-up call for China to say there is a unity, when there is a need, they will do it, like if they want to invade any other country, like near to China, and for Pakistan also, that now they maybe think twice to do anything that will be more effective than from the West and from the US and then the oceanic countries.
I can maybe give a very brief reaction to that from the standpoint of China. I think there is being a wake-up call for Europe. Of course, we're very early, like it's just a few months after the war in Ukraine, but I think we're seeing the first steps or an understanding of the risks that the EU is running based on its dependency vis-a-vis China. What we're seeing now with Russia, the economic problems that the sanctioning of Russian gas is posing to the EU. In comparison, like if you compare the EU's dependency on Russia versus the EU's dependency on China, just imagine if in the future anything would happen between the EU and China, and the EU would have to cut supply chains with China. This would pose a huge problem for the EU. And I think think this understanding is starting in the EU. It's of course not where we want it to be. But I think most importantly and most interestingly, this is happening in Germany, which has had the most strong economic ties to China. I think also if you look at statements, for instance, from the German Ministry of Economy, is that it is now actively recognizing that the dependency of EU, but also of Germany, on China might very well pose very severe problems in the future if for any reason the EU would have to sanction Chinese companies or sanction the Chinese government for whatever reason. I think this is an understanding that is starting to grow, and I think in EU official policy and in also like the Germany's approach to China, I think this is something that is definitely growing, and of course we will be there to remind the EU at every occasion of this dependency. But it's there, and it's going to be interesting to see how that will play out.
Yeah, maybe. To add, there has been some sanctions by the EU on the Chinese leadership, especially on some people who were involved in the repression of the Uyghur people. So there are some examples of, but it's not comparable with what the EU and the United States have imposed on Russia. At the same time, I would say it helped a lot that the Western governments took a strong stand on Russia. If you look at the situation, for example, in Taiwan, yeah, they actually are under a huge threat. Xi Jinping said several times that it's one of his biggest aim to make his Taiwan again part of China. So, I think this whole Ukrainian situation showed that the European Union is not defenseless, that they are able to react. And I think this is a good lesson also for European politicians and leaders to see that their actions are sort of, recognized by other countries. And I would say also countries not like only like China, but also in other areas of the world who have some authoritarian rulers, they maybe also get a little bit more sort of attentive to see and cautious about doing the most craziest thing. Yeah. So I think this whole Ukraine experience could be of some help for the global situation. But for the short term, I think it would be wrong to assume that this will affect. But it's more sort of long-term effects.
Dr. Greenwood, you wanted to say something as well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I fully support and of course recognize that if EU has got a bill, they can do something about it. But the relationship with China is very interesting because I'm just going to, yes, they might have done some examples of sanctions of things, but in our perspective, just to give you example, GSP Plus, the Standing Committee was reviewed about a year and a half ago or two by European Parliament. They commissioned the private consultants to do to see the performance of Bangladesh and Pakistan and so on. And guess who was the private consultancy? It was a Chinese company who are actually infrastructure builders. So I'm afraid Chinese companies not gonna report wrongly Pakistan's on human rights. So it's a very delicate, very complex relationship of economics there, and then bringing to the one more point on the Sri Lanka, the current economic crisis. This is very interesting because what Sindhis and Baloch are doing right now, resisting CPAC project at the moment, is just because of very reasons. About 20 years ago, Sri Lanka was given a grant from China to build those dams and hydropower and infrastructure. And now their sixth generation is going to be in debt to China in Sri Lanka if they have a crisis. And similar, this is what I said, my grandchildren will be
poisoned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, one last question, and then I think we have to move to, there's another one there. You first, and then we finish, and something. And we can always continue one and one.
Once again, I would oppose the idea of sanctioning military aid or weapons to Pakistan. And I will ask that whether it is China or Pakistan or whatever, blockades or sanctions do not work, but cooperations work. And we should ensure democracy in every country. Like in my country, minorities are sitting in the parliament, but they do not represent the religious minorities. Our population is growing, but our parliamentary seats are not growing. We are forced to think whether our mothers have stopped giving birth to babies. And it should be in the mind of European Union that you cannot hire a person, send him for 15 days to Islamabad or Karachi or Lahore, and he comes back and writes a nice report, and you say he's an expert on Pakistan. This is insane. This is stupid. Yeah. Local solutions to problems should come from local leaders. We have enough Pakistani Christians, Pakistani Hindus, Sri Lankans sitting in Europe. European Union, if they really want to do something, they should engage us. They should get the input from us, and they should make their policy in the light of what we say, because we have experienced the life of Pakistan. We know it because we are the sons of the land, and nobody is a bigger expert than we are. Thank you.
I would like to
You have to comment on that.
on it. See, I want to show you the picture about the election in Pakistan. In 1972, the general election, the total parliament membership was 206, and Pakistani minorities representation was only 10 seats. And now, after 50 years, the total majority, total representation of Pakistani parliament is 360, but minority seats still 10. So you can
imagine. Okay, the final question goes from Eva.
Yes. First of all, thank you for this conversation. My final question was for Dr. Bermud. I'm Eva, and I'm the coordinator of the Women's Rights Organization. And I was wondering if you could elaborate more on your role and the work of the International Single Women's Organization.
Thank you. Actually, since 2012, I've been campaigning on forced conversion on international media platforms. We also provide a lot of support on forced marriages in UK as well. So, for example, Manchester, Bradford, we have a local forums which we support the girl, because still forced marriages happen in UK as well, unfortunately, in Pakistani families. But also we provide rehabilitation funds we generate locally. We sat home for rehabilitation for the girls. Especially the challenges here is that the victims of forced conversion are unfortunately not accepted by their families either. That's the really tragedy here. And so we need to have some sort of a rehabilitation and shelter for them. The shelters are very I shouldn't say that, but a very Islamic bias, that again it's not protection. And frankly, the state-owned shelters are, I'm embarrassed to say, are being used by police as a brothels. So there's a whole challenge there. But we do have one private shelter. We engage by our foundation, so we do relationship. So we arrange the movement of the girls to the safe houses. As much as, of course, we are a small organization, but these are the activities we do back home. We also support a lot of minority Hindu girls, especially for education, ones for scheduled caste. So these cases are mostly common in the scheduled, the indigenous tribal cases. Middle class is also affected, but very much is the scheduled caste, which is really, so we've been forcing them with the state. We're helping Assembly to write the bill, which we proposed 3 times and has been rejected, not by Sindh Assembly, but the Federal Assembly. So Sindh Assembly passed the bill, Federal Assembly rejected the bill. So we've been doing a lot of home support type of it in UK and Sindh, for also some sort of lobbying work as well, and also fundraising.
There's one more related question.
Hello. I'm also a women's rights team, and I want to ask a question about sexual
sexual violence that minorities women experience due to their beliefs and religion. As we all know that sexual violence is not a national problem, but international problem. It's not about race, it's not about ethnicity, but all the women from the world are experiencing this. At the house, at the streets, like everywhere. So my question is, and to all of you personally, how we should tackle this problem? What would be the efficient solution to put an end to this cruel situation? Because we can expect world leaders to address and speak about it, but at a national level, like in the local places, we don't see any changes. I'm originally Turkish, and I witnessed such cruelties, and I'm still witnessing it. And even though we are addressing at international and European level, I don't see any changes that's happening in a practical way. So as a expertise in seeing these cases, what would be your personal suggestion that we should do as young generation? Thank you.
Do you mean in Europe or internationally or in Pakistan? Everything, okay. So because it does matter a difference, because if you're talking about European, because we are talking about different levels. Absolutely. But if you look back to the issue of Pakistan, I think in our case is education. I mean, I didn't quote a lot of things in literature, that in syllabus for children is taught that if you convert a non-Muslim girl into Islam is a jihad. So when a child of 13 years old boy learns that it's okay to convert and kidnap a young girl because it's a jihad and he's gonna receive a sawab, it means blessings, then it's completely different mindset. So through education is a very important element of how syllabuses are written and designed in Pakistan. So I'm gonna come on internationally as well. So Pakistan has got a major problem with education system. We radicalize our young generation and young mind. I came from Pakistan 13 years old. Syllabus from today and 30 years is day and night difference. We don't read about history. Islamization is ingrained in our curriculum. So that's one thing. Education, absolutely key and awareness raising. And then internationally, I'm afraid it's very difficult. I'm not expert on international and European point of view. But again, public awareness, gender equality, diversity and inclusion, more loving, more openness, more campaigning, more resistance. And actually, as being a mother, how I brought up my son is very important to teach them. As mothers, we have a responsibility to teach our boys how to respect women. So it's a kind of really, but in a lobbying point of view, I think it's very important that we have a gender equality. I mean, I work for United Kingdom Railway, and we've been promoting a lot of gender equality in every field, every discipline, really. So I think making sure that, for example, I should have been, you should have an equality in every representation as well. And that's, thank you.
I want to
Very short, please.
Yeah, there is different pictures. If someone face sexual harassment in Europe, for example, then you have voice. You can ask, you can go to the police, or you can get good result. You can get positive result. But in Pakistan, even police could have do something for protecting that girls, but they have a nexus with the kidnappers, the law enforcement agencies, and the kidnappers. They have nexus, and they destroy the cases. And most of Christian cases I personally know, because of the negligence, the case go against the family, and the girls go by force to the kidnappers. So this is the difference between Europe and Pakistan.
Okay, I think we have to come to an end. Drinks are waiting for us in the restaurant. I think we had a very, very wise panel, very good insights. At least for me, I learned a lot about what we can do as NGO, what we can do as citizens. We should not sit still and think someone else is going to solve this. We have to work together, and we have to stand up and speak out. And that's what we do today. And I hope there's good lessons for our organization for the future. It was very nice to hear from you. I think we allow them a random applause from the audience. So thank you so much for coming. We can still spend some time together and talk one-to-one about issues that we haven't solved, and that's most of it, unfortunately. And thank you all for coming. It was very nice to have you here in Brussels. And also the people who watched online, thank you for watching. And please be with us and support this important work. Thank you.
No.